Good morning, Metalheads here, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the latest studio album from Annihilator, entitled Ballistic, Sadistic. Annihilator is a Canadian thrash metal band that's been kicking around for just over 30 years now, and while they may not have ever risen to the success and influence of some of their thrash metal peers, or for that matter even some of their Canadian peers such as Voivod and Anvil, they have remained a pretty steady and competent force within the genre, within the Canadian scene of rock and metal. Their debut album in particular is regarded as a thrash metal classic, and Loudwire even put it on a special list, calling it one of the best thrash albums that wasn't released by one of the American Big Four bands. And now we have Ballistic Sadistic, the band's 17th studio album. Main man Jeff Waters has gone out of this way to say that it is their best album in nearly 15 years. I'm frankly just going to take his word for it because I honestly have not listened to every single Annihilator album released within the last 15 years, and I'm going to take a wild guess that unless you're a diehard fan, you probably haven't either. But I will say that if Jeff Waters is to be believed when he says that this is the best Annihilator album in 15 years, then that frankly doesn't say a whole lot about the last 15 years of Annihilator. Because this album feels very safe, it feels very predictable, it feels very run-of-the-mill. It's not a complete dud, to be entirely fair, and Jeff Waters remains one of thrash metal's most underappreciated technical performers, but the songwriting leaves a lot to be desired, and the album just doesn't really have anything that interesting or unique to offer. And these are all things that become glaringly obvious when you consider just how much better thrash metal has gotten in the last year, with standout records from Possessed and Sacred Reich, and promising records on the way from the likes of Revocation and Power Trip. Like, why would I waste my time with the 17th studio album from this legacy metal band when I can find objectively better material out there? And that's a problem that hurts this album nearly immediately. But like I said, not a complete dud. If you're willing to turn your brain off and you're just coming in here looking for some tasty riffs and some tasty guitar solos, there is some legitimate fun to be had here. Take for instance on the opening track, Armed from the Teeth, which actually starts the album on an extremely enthusiastic note and kind of has me banging my head as I'm listening to it, and I'm really getting into the solos and the riffs and the vibe, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm ready to throw a motherfucker down to this thing. I Am Warfare is a pretty cool number as well, one of the more technical songs on the record, with these almost Voivodian stops and time changes laced throughout the song, placed with Annihilator's signature metal riffery. And despite Out With the Garbage dipping its toes into some full-blown edgy juvenile bullshit, I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of find myself enjoying it because of that killer riff in the chorus. All of Jeff Waters' guitar solos are great. I've always liked how he can take these really technical parts and these really lavish solos and implement them into these more straightforward thrash metal bruisers. Hell, I can even get down with his vocals, even if he does sound maybe a bit too much like a really young Dave Mustaine. Although, to be entirely fair, I would rather hear very young Dave Mustaine as opposed to very modern new Dave Mustaine, so yeah, it's not really much of a complaint, I suppose. Now, while the album never loses its energy, it's fair to say that it does lose a little bit of its intelligence and luster as it carries on. The songs do kind of take a little bit of a dip in quality and begin to bleed together, and they begin to feel the same and move the same and act the same. And it's in these moments that I began to notice just how bad some of the fucking lyrics are on this album. The Attitude stands out as being a particularly edgy, over-the-top kind of number, with its "fuck your attitude" chorus screamed into my ear. It's repetitive, it's monotonous, it feels like the kind of thing a teenager would write in his basement after yelling at his stepdad. And then you've got Lip Service, which stands out as probably having some of the most inappropriate and unintentionally creepy lyrics I've heard on a song in quite some time. Like, when I listen to this song, all I can think of is, wow, this is grounds for a sexual harassment lawsuit. This particular segment just makes me feel dirty every time I hear it. Sweat dripping from the skin, I'm dancing with the ultimate one, like a sweet peach dipped in honey, with a taste that's second to none. Kind of feels like a bunch of weird teenage horn dogs trying to write the sequel to Motley Crue's Slice Your Pie or some shit like that. And this is all without even mentioning that this song very oddly steals from an older Annihilator track, Night Jumps Queen, to the point where if you play them back to back, they actually kind of bleed together and start to sound way too fucking similar. I'm going to give this thing a 2.5 out of 5. If you're a diehard Annihilator fan, or you're just looking for some meat and potatoes heavy metal, you might have some fun with a few of the cuts here, but to get to some of these songs, you have to sit through some other really uninspired numbers and deal with some really disgusting and cringeworthy lyrics. And honestly, it just doesn't seem worth it in general when the band has 16 other albums that you could probably check out, some of which I guarantee you are much better than this, much more consistent, much more mature, much better performed and arranged. I don't think they're quite as conservative as Anvil and Overkill, but Annihilator are definitely beginning to occupy that same space where a new album from them just kind of feels useless, pointless, just another feather in the wind, like, who cares? I guess to be entirely fair to Anvil and Overkill, they've also, at least not to my immediate memory, written something as inherently disturbing and weird as Lip Service, so I guess there's that as well. I don't know. Ballistic Sadistic definitely has its fun moments, but you gotta get to a lot of crap to get to those fun moments, and the album is just so immediately inessential that I just don't see the point. 2.5 out of 5, it's the definition of okay. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this album? Do you not like this album? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.